Hey guys, Eddie here. This is week 4 of SQL. This week I'm up against the simp himself, the coach of the College Station Good Bulls, or College Stat Good Bulls, something along those lines, otherwise known as Mario. So Mario likes to claim that he's pretty bad at doubles, or VGC, competitive format, but his record with his Palo Sand says otherwise. So in my prep for this match, I I heavily prepped considering that he was going to bring in Palo Sand. So I was really disappointed that he didn't, which is why you're seeing me kind of struggle right now as to who to bring in. A lot of the sets that I'm running on my Mons were in anticipation of him bringing in that Palo Sand and that one particular support Mon that I can't think of its name at the moment. So originally, my plan was to lead with Sylveon and Grimmsnarl, which I know sounds as a very unconventional lead, but my original plan was to lead with them to counter his Palo Sand. And since he didn't bring it, I didn't know what else to do, so I just stuck with the original plan, and I decided to lead with Sylveon and Grimmsnarl anyways. So here we see him lead with the Porygon and the Marowak, which is to be expected. His team is very reliant on that Porygon setting up a Trick Room. Unfortunately, I have no way to counter that Trick Room, so instead I just decide to Dynamax on turn 1, hoping that I can, somehow take out that Marowak in the first turn. That way it's not as big of a threat during Trick Room. So yeah, that's the plan so far. But he gets me with the ally switch. I swear, this ally switch is gonna haunt me ever since my match with Redwood. Fortunately, as you can see, I'm running a weakness policy set on my Grimmsnarl and a self-proc by using Sylveon's Pixelate Quick Attack. Unfortunately, I get a critical hit on myself, which is not what I had originally planned. A +2 attack still isn't enough to take out the Porygon, which is to be expected. Porygon 2 is very bulky, as you can tell. Luckily, I did get the snooze effect on it, so it's not so much of a threat in the future, as it will fall asleep. However, I still don't think that a quick attack is strong enough to take it out. So instead, I decided to use Psych Up on my Grimmsnarl to copy the stat changes that Grimmsnarl got. Originally, my plan against his Palo Sand was to use Psych Up on his boosted Palo Sand, copying all of its stat changes, and then hopefully sweeping with my Sylveon. But unfortunately, that he didn't bring in that Mon. Here he did somehow, by the grace of God, got a freeze on me, which is very annoying on my end, but very lucky on his end. So I wasted my second turn of DMAX, but luckily I did Psych Up on the Grimmsnarl, so Sylveon does have that +2 attack and +2 special attack. So Sylveon is low-key a threat. So it'll be interesting to see how he tries to take it out. Obviously, Grimmsnarl isn't the biggest threat to him at the moment since it is frozen, but hopefully I can change that. That can change for me. So Flare Blitz does knock out the Sylveon. Sylveon is pretty frail defensively, so it did get one shot by the Marowak, and as you can see, my Grimmsnarl wasn't unable to unfreeze itself. So now I've lost my third turn of Dynamax, which is really annoying, but again, really good for Mario. So props to him for try attacking my Grimmsnarl. So here, I don't know why, but I decided to bring out my Draco's ult. I thought that it could put in some heavy damage, but he decides to bring in the Comfy, and that prioritized Draining Kiss is a major threat to my Draco's ult. So I decided to protect and hoped that Grimmsnarl would be unable to unfreeze itself, since I'm assuming he won't be aiming for the Grimmsnarl. But as you can see, Grimmsnarl wasn't able to, and that's like my third turn, I think, being frozen, which is pretty crazy and really annoying. But it is what it is. You just gotta keep the game going. So here I decided to switch into my Porygon Z. My Porygon Z does have the Assault Vest, so it should be able to tank a Draining Kiss pretty easily. Although I'm not too sure if it would be able to tank an attack from Murwalk. Since, Assault Vest only boosts your special defense and not your physical defense. And as you can see, it wasn't able to tank that after all. So a waste of bringing Porygon Z in, but at least I get to save my Draco's ult for one more turn. And again, Grimmsnarl is frozen for yet another turn, which is crazy. I don't think I've ever had a Pokemon be frozen for this long. I don't know what kind of brujeria Mario did before the match, but whatever he did, it's definitely working. So in comes that Draining Kiss, which is going to do a big chunk of damage. It is super effective. And it should be noted that Mario hasn't even Dynamaxed yet, so things are definitely not looking good for me in this first match. So finally, my Grimmsnarl unfreezes itself or unthaws itself, and it manages to get an attack on Comfy, which still isn't enough, which is really surprising given the fact that my Grimmsnarl is at +2 attack. So I'm assuming that he's running a very bulky set, a very defensive EV spread on his Comfy, which would make the most sense. And we see him bring his Rillaboom, setting up that Grassy Surge, being a really big threat right now. And it's pretty much GG at this point in time. I would say that I don't think there's any way that I could possibly win this. But yeah, props to Mario. He played really well. That freeze on the tri-attack probably saved his ass, in my opinion. But it is what it is. And yeah, I definitely think that he played really well. In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have prepped so heavily against the Palossand, but when you see a Pokemon like that so high in the kill leaderboards, I mean, you kind of have to. So GG to Mario for match 1. He played very well. He definitely had a little bit of luck on his side, and I think that definitely played a big part in the game. But regardless, this is a best 2 out of 3, so I definitely have another chance to redeem myself. Obviously, the Sylveon Grimmsnarl lead did not work out in that first match, so I definitely need to switch things up a bit. That first match went really, really well for Mario, so I'm assuming that he's gonna stick with the same lead. In this case, I will be bringing in my Gengar, aka La Llorona, and my Porygon Z, Norton, in the back. I think I decided here that I'll be bringing in the Draco's ult because it is a very good counter to that Milotic, and I will also be bringing in my Sylveon. There wasn't much reasoning behind this. I just thought that, you know, half of my team here is pretty support based, and Sylveon is kind of like the best mix between support and offense. So that's my reasoning for bringing it in as my fourth Pokemon. So in this second match, Mario does bring out the same lead. You know, it makes the most sense. It did wonders for him in the first match, so it should do the same in the second match. However, you know, on my Gengar, I am running an Imprison Trick Room moveset. Originally, I ran this moveset on Meowstic in my match against Redwood, and it worked pretty well for the most part, but I didn't want to run it on Meowstic because I figured he would have predicted that since I used it in my last SQL match. So I decided to run it on Gengar instead. With Porygon Z, you know, most of the time when you see Porygon Z on the field, it is going to Dynamax on the first turn, only because, you know, that max strike adaptability is just like crazy damage. So I do D-Max here in the first turn. And I do Imprison, hoping that he is pretty cocky with his first wind and tries to set up a Trick Room. Luckily, we don't see an ally switch from the Marowak, and he decides to D-Max as well, which is pretty scary given the fact that Marowak has a very high attack stat coupled with its thick club. It's just, you know, ridiculously scary. So let's see what he does here. So he goes for a max guard, which is probably smart because he wants to set up a Trick Room. As I said before, you know, I am running Imprison, so any Trick Room shenanigans are, you know, immediately stopped at this point. And yeah, so he did go for the Trick Room in that first turn. Luckily, I made the right call. So now I'm just going to go ahead and double into the Marowak because it is in my opinion, it's a very, very big threat at the moment. Also, I will say that, you know, this week has been really, really hectic for me, and, you know, I've been looking forward to this match all week, and yeah, props to Mario. Thank you for scheduling it very early in the week for me. I really, really appreciate it. So it looks like Mario's having some trouble deciding what to do now that I thwarted his Trick Room plan. He does swap out the Porygon 2, which I wasn't expecting at all. He brings out the Comfy, but, you know, I wasn't targeting the Porygon 2 at all, so it's a really safe pivot on his end. So it looks like he made a good call on his end. But, you know, since I did double into the Marowak, I was able to get that KO, which is really, really good for me, but pretty bad for Mario because he essentially wasted his D-Max. So here I decided to set up an Imprison again. You know, my team is not necessarily super fast, but it's definitely faster than most of the Pokemon in his team. So a Trick Room would definitely put me at somewhat of a disadvantage. So I'm just setting up an Imprison just to be safe. His Porygon 2 and his Comfy shouldn't be strong enough to put any significant damage on my Gengar, so I went for that move instead. However, you know, he decides to pivot into his Rillaboom, which I thought was a really, really smart play. You know, Rillaboom is ridiculously OP in VGC. It's like one of the most used mons at the moment. I should have definitely taken it into consideration a bit more while I was prepping, but I kind of just like forgot about it if I'm being honest. Um, and I'm assuming he's running an assault vest on his Rillaboom because he was able to tank a full-on adaptability max strike for my Porygon Z, and my Porygon Z is a modest nature. I'm not running a Life Orb, but still, that's like some heavy damage to tank. So far, things are looking pretty good for me. You know, I still have all 4 of my Pokemon. They're all at full HP. So, you know, I'm definitely feeling a bit confident here at this moment in the match. But, you know, as you can see, as you saw in the last match, you know, anything could happen. Like, he could try attack any one of my Pokemon and he can get a freeze again, which would be really annoying. But, you know, you just never know during these games. So here I unveil that Gengar does no clear Smog. Again, in my prepping for my match against Mario, I prepped really hard against Palossand, and I decided to run clear Smog on Gengar as a backup in case, you know, Sylveon went down or Grimmsnarl went down, and I just needed to get rid of all of its stats that it had gained. So at this point in time, I'm definitely feeling a bit confident. You know, Comfy and Porygon 2 aren't necessarily the biggest offensive threats. The only threat that I have in my mind at this moment is, you know, somehow Porygon 2 got another freeze, which would really be annoying since it did me really dirty in that first match. But so far, I think I'm doing pretty well, and hopefully it stays that way. And again with the ally switch. In my last match against Redwood, the amount of ally switches that happened during that game was just, it was far too much, and I told myself that I didn't want to run ally switch on any of my Pokemon during this game. I'm just 100% over it. So to see it again is pretty funny. I feel like ally switch is going to haunt me in this league from now on. And he gets the second freeze. I don't know what kind of luck Mario is having tonight, but or like I said before, I don't know if he pulled any kind of Bruhidia before the match, but it's working, man. He's definitely getting all those crazy secondary effects, which is really good for him, but bad for me. The second match is definitely being drawn out a lot longer than I had hoped for. He's really doing his best to, stay alive and put up a good fight, which I respect 100%. Porygon 2 with its Eviolite is bulky, like bulky with a capital B. And Comfy as well, he's definitely running some kind of defensive EV spread on it. So it's definitely, as you can see, I'm like struggling really hard to take these two Pokemon out. So I decided to bring in my Porygon Z. I just want to like hyper beam the shit out of one of them, get at least one of them off the field because, the second match is just being drawn out way too long. And he gets the burn. Not at this point, I'm not even surprised. He could burn and paralyze me and I wouldn't be surprised. Props to Mario, like his luck is just amazing tonight. Okay, so it looks like Mario decided to cancel the second match, which is, pretty reasonable. I don't think there was any reason why that match should be drawn out more than it should have. I respect that. I think Mario was just figured that that match was going nowhere, so he decided to take the L and hopefully make up for that L in the third round. So since this is best 2 out of 3, this third round, decides who wins this match. Yeah, so no pressure. So since his Porygon 2 lead didn't work out as he expected it to work out, I'm assuming that he's not going to bring out the Porygon 2 as his lead. So there's really no reason for me to bring out Gengar as my lead. So in this case, I'm debating whether I should bring in my original Sylveon Grimmsnarl Weakness Policy Proc tech. But since he kind of knows most of the moves that I'm running on those Pokemon, I decided to bring in my Meowstic since it is a Pokemon that he hasn't seen yet in this match. And I decided to bring in my Porygon Z as the second Pokemon because, Porygon Z is a very safe lead. It hits really, really hard. And I think this is just my best case scenario or my best lead for this third round. So it looks like, Mario is definitely putting some thought into who he wants to lead with, which is, totally reasonable. I would be doing the same. There's a lot of stakes. The stakes are high in this third match. It's anyone's game at this moment. So it looks like he didn't lead with his Porygon 2 after all. It looks like I made the right call in not bringing in my Gengar. I don't know what kind of moveset the Milotic is running, so that is pretty scary. But I do know that the Rillaboom is running some sort of Assault Vest or some kind of specially defensive EV spread. So in this case, I'm thinking that a Helping Hand boosted Max Strike should definitely be more than enough to knock it out. I'm assuming that he's gonna, at this point in time in the game, I'm assuming that he's gonna try to fake out my Meowstic, but Helping Hand does have a higher priority than fake out. So a Helping Hand Max Strike should do the trick here. But Mario actually catches me off guard. He decides to Dynamax his Rillaboom. And it looks like it's a G-Max Rillaboom instead of your ordinary D-Max Rillaboom. Which is really scary because I forgot what its G-Max move is called, but I know that it has a really high base power. So let's see if this helping hand is enough to take it out. And no, it looks like that extra boost in its HP is enough to survive a hit from a max strike, even with a critical hit. And he is running a competitive ability on his Milotic, which is really bad for me because the max strike lowers its speed on both Pokemon, so it activates its ability. He pulls out the coil, so now his Milotic is really boosted in its stats. I'm assuming he's either running Muddy Water or Hypnosis, because that makes the most sense when you're running coil. So I'm just gonna go ahead and try to put it to sleep because if I continue to let this Milotic boost its stats, it can become really scary in like a turn or two. So I decided to max strike the Rillaboom again because it's really rare for a Rillaboom to run Protect. I don't think I've ever seen a Rillaboom run Protect. It's usually, for damaging moves, and it either carries like Miracle Seed, Choice Band, or Assault Vest. So I think I'm pretty safe in, just taking it out. I'm pretty confident that it's not gonna max guard. I could have, just done Max Thunder into the Milotic, and it should have been enough to take it out. But, I definitely just want to get this Rillaboom off the field right now. G-Max Rillaboom is it's too scary for me. So it looks like the Muddy Water is enough to take out my Porygon Z, which is totally fine. Porygon Z did what it had to do. It took out a big threat on his side of the field, and it looks like his Milotic took out the big threat on my side of the field. So it looks like the match is pretty even, in my opinion, at this point in time. So here I decided to bring in my Gengar. Gengar does know Clear Smog, so I'm hoping I can get rid of all of the Milotic's boosted stats, but he does bring in the Porygon 2, so now I have choices to make. I can either Imprison to get rid of a potential Trick Room, or I can just go ahead and clear Smog. I do decide to clear Smog the Milotic because in my eyes the Milotic is a much bigger threat than the Porygon 2. The boosted stats on the Milotic is just crazy at this point, and I need to reset those. Okay, so he does go for the Muddy Water, but luckily with that Clear Smog, it does like almost nothing. But the Tri-Attack will be enough to take out my Meowstic, which is totally fine. Meowstic also did what it had to do. It ran a really good supportive set, and it was able to pull off not just one yawn, but two. One on the Milotic and one on the Porygon 2. So still, I would say that the match is pretty even. He still has 3 healthy Pokemon. I have 2. 2 of his Pokemon have been affected by Yawn. So, it's still anyone's game at this match. The stakes are high. I'm stressed out AF. I don't know what's going to happen. Well, I guess I do, since I, played it and I'm recording post-game, but you guys don't know. So since the Milotic is asleep, I definitely want to get this Porygon 2 out of the way. I'm hoping that the Milotic will stay asleep for another turn or two, but it looks like my Bolt Beak still wasn't enough to take out the Porygon 2. That Pokemon is so bulky, I hate it. So here I decided to, switch my aiming and just go into the Melodic instead. I I don't think that the Porygon 2 knows any other attack move than Tri-Attack, so even if I hadn't had gotten that Clear Smog onto the Porygon 2, the Porygon 2 at this point isn't much of a threat to me anymore. And luckily the Bolt Beak did land, and was able to take out the Melodic. And it looks like his last Pokemon is the Comfey. I really love the shiny Comfey, by the way. It's definitely one of my favorite shinies. So if I was Mario, I would definitely try to pull a Draining Kiss on my Dracozolt. So I decided to just Protect, you know, which he does in fact go for the Draining Kiss, and I go for a Clear Smog. Clear Smog, unfortunately, has a very low base power. I think it has a base power of like 40. Begengar, it has a very high special attack, and it's maxed out. So even with the 40 base power, it does a chunk of damage on the Comfey. So here I'm trying to pull a Baker, and I'm trying to, pull off a second Protect in a row, but I do not have any kind of luck at all. It's really homophobic, to be honest, but it's okay. My Gengar is still alive and healthy. He has a Fairy type on his side of the field, so I would definitely say that the advantage is on my side. Again, the Clear Smog still isn't enough to take it out. I blame that low base power, but again, still does a very decent amount of damage. So Mario actually goes for the Protect. This man will not die. He is refusing to die. He does not want to lose, which I totally respect, but Mario, you better not go for that second Protect. Okay, he doesn't. He goes for a Draining Kiss, but I will resist it with my Poison type, and my Clear Smog should hit, and it should knock out the Comfey. So at this point in time, it is GG. It was definitely a really fun match. I look forward to this match all week long. It's always a pleasure playing against Mario. But yeah, catch me next week. I'm not sure who I'm up against, but another video will definitely be up. All right,